A Night in Medieval Times, Reflections and Lessons. In an age before electric lights, digital distractions, or alarm clocks, nighttime in medieval Europe was a world unto itself. The rhythms of daily life were dictated not by personal convenience or technology, but by nature, tradition, and faith. Once the sun vanished below the horizon, darkness ruled. A single flickering candle might mark the boundary between safety and fear, just as the tolling of a church bell could signal the beginning of a sacred silence. The vast majority of people ceased their labors at dusk, shops closed, hearth fires were banked, and households retreated behind bolted doors. To modern sensibilities, many medieval sleep patterns can seem strange or disorienting, but within them lie rich insights into how people once experienced time, rest, and community. By studying the habits and assumptions surrounding medieval rest, we uncover a world shaped by vulnerability, ritual, and resilience. In the differences between then and now, we discover enduring lessons about the essence of the night. A different world, time, fear, and faith in the medieval night. The twilight of certainty. For the medieval mind, nightfall was not merely the absence of sunlight, it was a liminal realm, a time of uncertainty and transition. Unlike the modern city, brightened by streetlights and secured by 24-hour policing, medieval nights were characterized by darkness, mystery, and a suspension of most ordinary activity. As the sun set, much of the known world literally receded into shadow. By evening, towns and villages grew quiet, shops and market stalls shuttered at dusk, and city gates were locked fast until dawn. In many places a curfew bell rang out to signal that it was time for everyone to bank their fires and stay indoors. Medieval chroniclers describe how at night the city gates are locked tight. The city is like one big household, with everything well secured. In communities from Paris to York, such curfews created an expectation of collective rest and safety after dark. Travelers caught outside would find the gates barred for the night. Within the walls, streets emptied except for watchmen on patrol. The world shrank to one's immediate household or the circle of a campfire. Beyond that circle lay darkness and the unknown. Medieval people did not measure time at night in precise minutes or hourly intervals as we do now. There were no glowing clocks on the wall or pocket watches to consult. Instead, time was experienced through natural and ecclesiastical markers, the fading of twilight, the position of the stars or moon, the crowing of a rooster toward dawn, or the toll of a distant church bell. The structure of the medieval day and night was heavily influenced by the church's canonical hours. Monastic communities divided day and night into a cycle of prayer, matins, or vigils, deep in the night, lauds at daybreak, prime in early morning, then terce, sext, none through midday and afternoon, vespers at sunset, and compline at the day's end. These religious intervals did more than organize monastic routine, they subtly shaped communal consciousness even for laypeople. The parish church's bells might ring out for vespers or compline, audible cues that the day was ending. At night, while most lay folk slept, the monks in local monasteries kept the hours alive by rising to chant matins in the pre-dawn darkness. In this way, time after sunset was sanctified and punctuated by prayer rather than by commerce or work. A town's night watch and the monastery's bell towers were the twin guardians of order against the chaos that darkness threatened to unleash. Nighttime was kept vigil by these sentinels, the watchmen who made rounds with lantern and staff, and the clergy who prayed through the wee hours. It's important to note that the medieval sense of time was elastic and communal. Without widespread mechanical clocks, which only became common in the late Middle Ages, people relied on shared experiences and cues. The very word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire. A bell would announce this each evening, telling everyone it was time to smother hearth fires for safety. The end of daylight was a community event marked by sound and ritual. Likewise, dawn was signaled by church bells or the natural chorus of roosters. This experimental way of telling time fostered a more intuitive rhythm of life. Sleep and waking were guided by environmental cues and custom rather than minute-by-minute calculation. In practical terms, most people went to bed not at a fixed time, but whenever darkness and the day's labor dictated. If the moon was bright or a festival was underway, bedtime might be later. In long winter nights, it came earlier. The result was a flexible, almost seasonal approach to rest that modern clock-driven schedules rarely allow. The role of fear. To close one's eyes in the medieval night was, in a sense, to place oneself in the hands of fate, or for the devout, in the hands of God. The physical dangers of night were very real. Without street lighting or effective law enforcement, darkness provided cover for all manner of hazards. A stray spark from an untended hearth could reduce a whole district of timber houses to ashes while everyone slept. Raiders or bandits sometimes struck under the veil of night, when lookouts were few. Wild animals, though wary of humans, posed threats on the edges of settlements, wolves prowling for livestock, or rabid dogs wandering in from the woods. Crime flourished after sunset as well. Thieves and violent criminals found it easier to operate unseen. It was understood for centuries that after dark the unlit streets belonged to the disorderly and immoral elements bent on thievery or worse. Entire communities feared the figure of the nocturnal nightwalker, so much that medieval towns appointed night watchmen and enacted nightwalker statutes allowing the arrest of anyone lurking outside after curfew. Simply put, honest folk had ample reason to be anxious once the lamps were doused. Beyond these tangible threats, the medieval night was also steeped in supernatural fear. In a world where illness or death could strike without warning, it is little surprise that people filled the darkness with ghosts, demons, and other spirits that might prey on the unwary sleeper. Bedtime prayers and charms were not only signs of piety, they were spiritual safeguards against the unknown dangers of the dark. A classic Christian bedtime prayer intones, "Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep, if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." Those lines echo a very real medieval anxiety, that one might not wake at all. Death during sleep, whether from illness, smoke inhalation, or other causes, was a known occurrence. The Church encouraged the faithful to end each day with an examination of conscience and an act of contrition, effectively preparing one's soul for eternity in case the night should be their last. It was common to keep a cross or holy relic near the bed for protection. Parents taught their children rhyming prayers to guardian angels to watch over them through the night. The act of lying down to sleep carried a faint echo of death. Indeed, as some noted, the sleeping body resembles a corpse in repose. This connection drove certain nobles to an odd practice. They would sleep propped up or semi-recumbent, since lying completely flat was thought of as the position of the dead and might invite misfortune. Nocturnal folklore vividly illustrated the era's fears. Medieval sermons and tales often reinforced belief in malevolent beings that became active after dark, when the veil between the living and the dead thinned. Some examples of these night terrors included the Wild Hunt. A spectral procession of ghostly riders and hounds was said to rampage across the night sky or through the woods. Accounts from England, France, and Germany describe a cacophony of pounding hooves and baying dogs led by a cursed or demonic huntsman. Witnessing the wild hunt was considered a dire omen, a sign of looming war, plague, or personal doom. In one 12th century chronicle, black hellhounds and headless horsemen were seen galloping for nights on end, interpreted as souls of the damned roaming without rest. Such stories, often recorded by clergymen, served as warnings of the spiritual dangers lurking in sin and disorder. Incubi and succubi. These were demonic creatures that preyed on people as they slept. In Christian folklore, an incubus was a male demon who would creep into bed with women, and a succubus was a female demon seducing men. Victims would report terrifying nightmares, paralysis, or unexplained physical signs in the morning. Medieval people offered these demons as explanations for phenomena like sleep paralysis, erotic dreams, or even unexpected pregnancies. The very word nightmare has roots in this era. The Old English mare was an evil spirit believed to sit on a sleeper's chest. To ward them off, one might sprinkle holy water around the bed, recite scripture, or wear a sackcloth to bed as a sign of humility. Incubi and succubi embodied both the sexual anxieties and the vulnerability of people during sleep. Restless dead and nocturnal apparitions. Folklore and local legends spoke of ghosts and revenants, reanimated corpses, that wandered at night. Unlike saint souls which were at peace, these were souls burdened by sins or stuck in purgatory, unable to rest. Medieval chronicles tell of processions of the dead moving through villages at midnight, or hunted spirits wailing in the wind. Churchmen sometimes described these phantoms as souls in torment, undergoing a sort of itinerant purgatory on earth until purged of their penance. Such tales were often used in sermons. If you died with unresolved sins, your spirit might be doomed to walk the night until the debt was paid. People thus prayed for the departed at night and lit blessed candles to guide lost souls or repel malevolent ones. These supernatural beliefs were not merely fringe superstitions, they were woven into the spiritual fabric of the medieval night. A person's fear of what lurked in the dark went hand in hand with faith in God's protection. Before bed, families would say their prayers, draw crosses over the door, and invoke saints or angels for safekeeping until morning. A common evening prayer from the Compline service entreated God to defend us from all perils and dangers of this night, a line that captured the mood of an entire era. In practice, fear did not usually prevent medieval people from sleeping, but it enveloped their sleep in a framework of spiritual vigilance. They understood the night as a time of heightened vulnerability, both physical and spiritual, and so they approached it with corresponding caution. Sleep was a kind of surrender of one's consciousness and control, so ideally one went to bed in a state of grace, with protections in place for body and soul. In this way, even as their bodies lay still, their faith kept watch.